welcome to the Youth Gambling and Why You Should Care training. My name is Stelianos Canaletos, the Prevention Manager for the New York Council on Problem Gambling. For just a moment, please take out your phone and take a picture of this QR code and take our pre-survey or pre-test. If you don't have your phone, you can use that link just below. You can press pause now. All right, great. If you pressed pause, welcome back. So, the New York Council on Problem Gambling exists to help raise awareness about problem gambling and to help connect individuals and families who are negatively affected, who are experiencing problems, to information, resources, and treatment services if they would like. We remain neutral on gambling. We are not pro-gambling and we are not anti-gambling. So, what are some things we can look forward to? We have WIFM, which is what's in it for me? Why should you care? Definitions, gambling risks, alternatives, and peer support. So, we're going to start with what's in it for you. So, youth gambling, why would you care? Think about how could gambling affect you, affect your peers, and affect other things around you. So we're going to cover a lot of this, but take a moment, press pause, and think of either to yourself or with your group. Why would you care? Okay, if you pressed pause, welcome back. We're going to go through this training and we're going to cover a lot of reasons why you would and should care about youth gambling. The number one thing we want you to keep in mind is you are at a very special age where your peer support is very important and valuable to your development. So as we're going through this training, I don't want you to just think about problem gambling and how it affects you if you had problems, but problem gambling and how it can affect your peers and what you can do to help support them if they are having problems because they are gambling. So, why is youth gambling risky? What are the risks involved? Take a moment, pause this, and think about it. Welcome back. If you pressed pause, we're going to keep talking about things to just keep adding as to why is youth gambling risky. So we're going to move on, and I will help answer this question as we move along. So now we're going to talk about some definitions. Just give us a foundation of what we're talking about. So what is gambling? Again, think about this. How would you define gambling if you were going to explain it? Let's say to an alien, someone comes down from outer space and they say, what is gambling? How would you describe it? How would you define it? Press pause and think about that. All right, if you pressed pause, welcome back. So again, hopefully you came up with some really interesting ways to define gambling. We simplify it. What is gambling? It is risking something of value on the chance for a desired result. The number one thing to think about here is chance. It is not gambling unless there is chance. There is a chance that something may or may not happen. And to make it gambling, people risk something of value. Now, many times people think of gambling, they think of money, maybe chips, but there are really an infinite number of things that could be of value. Here's an example. My wife and I have 4 kids, and we have fostered several others. So we have had diapers on diapers on diapers, and we are tired of diapers. So during the last presidential election season, we would gamble. The thing of value was the diaper, not having to change it. The chance was we would pick whether we thought it would be a Republican or a Democratic commercial. And whichever one came up, the person who selected the correct advertisement would not have to change the next dirty diaper. So it really shows that there are many different things that could be seen as something of value. This is just one quick example, a silly example really, of how people could gamble with things that are not necessarily money. We're going to look at just some statistics. Numbers may not be everyone's thing, but let's just look at some things. So 23% of New York State youth in grades 7 through 12 have gambled in the past year. So kids are gambling. We know some of you guys are out there gambling, you may not realize the risks. Another way to look at this is that 77% have not gambled. So the larger majority of you guys are not gambling, and that's great. But let's make sure that we are aware of the risk, consequences, and how to get help for those of us, our peers, and our friends that may be engaging in this risky behavior. Additionally, 30% of New York State students said it was easy to get involved in gambling, which can be shocking to some adults and some parents. They may say, not my kid. How can they be gambling? Well, first off, 65% said their preferred time to gamble was on the weekends. Obviously, free time, many of them may not have jobs or things to do. So to burn time, you're going to choose different activities. And if you don't know that gambling is risky, you may choose to do that. And there are a number of different ways and different activities that could be gambling. Just to name one right off the top, raffles. A lot of people don't realize that raffles are gambling. Let's say 50-50 raffles at a local football game. Well, the person is going to risk something of value, their money, on the chance to win back 50% of what is collected. That's gambling, risking something of value on the chance of getting that 50% back. So there are many different ways that gambling is around you. So this list is there to help you understand what may be considered gambling so you can make better choices for yourself and avoid gambling activities. So there are some differences between gambling and substance use, and it's important for us to know this, especially if we're going to be there to support our friends. So number one, there's no outward signs. You can't smell it. There's not like the speech thing. You can't see someone tripping on themselves. So there's that part. It's harder to see it because let's say someone is gambling and they've lost money and they're angry, right? But that anger could be attributed to anything. Problem with a friend, homework didn't get done, parents just yelled at you, whatever it is. It's hard to, identify that as the reason that someone has been gambling. There's no overdose. You can't over gamble. It utilizes money, which means someone who's struggling with gambling has to be around money. And that can be very, very challenging. There's a greater cultural and social acceptability. We will cover that in a few slides here. It could be used to replace or reduce other substance use, which may seem great, but when someone is choosing to gamble, their brain lights up the same way it would if someone is using other substances. So it is not a good replacement for other risky behaviors. And it's accessible everywhere. It's on your phone. It could be really anywhere somebody is, which includes being in the restroom, right? Most people now bring their phone in the bathroom. That means they could be gambling in the bathroom. So we want to be aware of what people are doing to help support those that are in need. And it's very important to note that individuals, including youth, who are struggling with problems due to gambling have a higher probability that they're thinking of or actually attempting suicide. So again, we really want to make sure we are there to support our friends, our peers, to help them if they're having trouble. So this is called the spectrum of gambling. And really what we're looking at is how somebody can go from non-gambling to problem gambling. So you might think, why is non-gambling on this spectrum? Well, because someone who may not be currently gambling could potentially gamble in the future. Hopefully as a youth, you don't gamble for a few years. We'll talk about why in a few minutes. But someone who is not gambling can at some point choose to gamble. Now, if they're choosing to gamble, they are technically at risk of struggling with some problems due to gambling. And as a youth who gamble will find themselves in trouble with gambling problems much quicker than an adult would. And what is problem gambling? Problem gambling is very simple. It is any time gambling causes problems in somebody's life. And we're going to talk about some of those consequences and challenges that a youth may face when they're having problems from gambling. Social norms are things like, don't go outside in your underwear. Social norms are things like, don't stare awkwardly at somebody who's talking to you. It makes them uncomfortable. Social norms. Make sure that you are not talking so close to someone that they can smell your breath, right? These are just social norms, things that we do every day that we may not even think about, that are just unwritten rules about how to participate in society. What are social norms around gambling? What are things that are normal when we think about gambling? So take a moment, press pause, and think about this either with yourself or with your group. All right, if you pressed pause, welcome back. So, some social norms around gambling are simple things like everyone in my family gambles, or there's a lot of gambling ads during sports teams and sports games. So, gambling on sports is normal. Perhaps you live near a casino and a lot of people either go there to gamble, they go there for events and shows, maybe they go there just for the restaurants. So the social norm is that the casino is just part of our society, part of our culture. So when gambling becomes part of the social norm, it really starts to be more difficult to understand that there can be problems due to gambling. And more importantly, for this training and for you guys, that youth gambling is not good. It should not be normal, and it should be either prevented or you guys making your own choices to not do it. So, what we're going to talk about next is gambling risks. Again, now we're going to start going into why is gambling risky? So, first, why would some youth gamble? Why would they even start choosing to engage in this activity? Take a moment, again, think for yourself or with your larger group why youth might gamble. Okay, if you press pause, welcome back. Some reasons why youth might gamble is boredom, excitement, socialization, and entertainment. So let's think about this. Number one, I have worked with youth across New York State, and whether a youth is living in a city or living out in the country, everybody's bored. No one feels like they have any exciting things to do, which is so funny because people in the city want to get out to the country, whereas people that live in the country want to go to the local cities. So it's really interesting. Every kid is bored. So they're looking for something that can be more exciting. So they're seeking excitement, things that get their adrenaline going, things that could be risky, things that, could bring them together, which brings us to socialization. They want to be with friends. They want to do things with people. So if one friend is doing something, it's very likely that their peers may engage in that activity as well. So they're kind of looking to do things together. And the last part is bringing it all together, entertainment. They want to do things that fill their time that make them feel good. Again, why is youth gambling risky? Take a moment, think about what we've talked about so far, and work with either yourself or with your group. Why is youth gambling risky? Press pause now. All right. If you pressed pause, welcome back. We're going to cover a few more things to really build up our understanding as to why is youth gambling risky. We're going to watch a quick video on brain development to really understand how does your brain development impact how you make decisions and your experience and how those decisions and experience affect you as you get older.
As teens, people are always telling us what we can't do. Do you ever wonder why that is? Why can't I stay up late? What could happen if I just play for 15 more minutes? Who cares if I smoke a joint every now and then? Let's face it, adults may mean well, but they can't really explain why they won't let us do this stuff. The thing is, there's actually a really cool explanation, and it has to do with our brains. From the outside, the brain of a newborn looks just like a smaller version of an adult brain, but there's a big difference. There's a ton of stuff that still needs to be programmed into a young person's brain. That's where our life experiences come in. How we interact with what's around us shapes our brains until we're in our mid-20s. We can't feel our brains changing, but they are super busy building circuits and programming. So how does this happen? Every little thing that happens to us can change our brain in huge ways. At short distances, our experiences can make or break connections between brain cells. By guiding the creation of circuits, experiences shape our perceptions, memories, and everything that makes us unique. But they also affect our brain across longer distances. This involves the construction of thick bundles of fibers that connect different brain regions. By creating this complex network, experiences help increase the brain's bandwidth, allowing it to work better and better. You've got to keep in mind, these short and long-range connections are influenced by everything we do and everything that happens to us. But this is awesome news. It means we are the programmers of our brains. Every decision, good or bad, influences how our brain develops. Let's talk about taking drugs. For example, pretend this is the keyboard you are using to program your brain. Using drugs just for fun or to get high would be like scrambling the letters on the keyboard. Now, if you scramble the letters on the keyboard after the program is written, that can lead to temporary errors or make it hard for the program to run for a while. But if you scramble the letters while the program is being written, the program can incorporate catastrophic, long-lasting glitches. This is why teens are better off without drugs. We are in the middle of coding our brains, and drugs can cause real problems that can last a long time. And yet, drugs are just one of the many possible ways of scrambling our keyboards. For example, not enough sleep, lack of exercise, or eating too much junk food can also harm our brain programs. So yeah, I get it. It's annoying to be told what we can and can't do, but I would rather focus on my ability to shape my brain through smarter decisions. It turns out we have far more control than we thought. We can use this information to choose our own paths and give ourselves the best possible futures.
So that video, again, really helped us understand the brain, and it's important to remember and know that the brain does not fully mature until about the age of 25. So these next few years are super important, and you are driving the car. You are in control with your day-to-day decisions of how powerful your brain could be. So let's talk more about, again, why is youth gambling risky? And let's talk about making healthy choices for yourself. So there are many things that youth prefer that can lead them more towards gambling. Number one, high excitement, low effort activities. A really easy example of this is there are books that are made into movies. Movies are more exciting. They're loud. You get to sit still. There's lights and explosions and all this cool stuff. But a book is low effort and it takes time. So this is why youth would choose movies over reading. Not everybody, but a lot of them. Social activities that trigger high intensity and arousal. Then we could be talking about anything from gambling, which is an unhealthy version, or we could be talking about other choices such as mountain bike riding, parasailing, speaking in front of an audience. So there are many other things that can get that system going, that adrenaline running, that can be not gambling and not a choice of an activity that is not healthy. And the last thing is novelty. They want easy. Youth want something easy. Gambling is easy. So we want to make sure we start to think about things that can replace gambling and other risky activities with healthier alternatives. So, what are some risks for youth who gamble? Take a minute and think about what are some potential consequences? What are things that can go wrong when a youth chooses to gamble? Press pause and do that now. Okay, if you press pause, welcome back. Let's go over some of the risks and potential consequences of youth gambling. We're talking about that. The first thing, and this is what comes up to most people anyway, is financial problems. problems getting money. So if someone's starting to choose to gamble, especially because as a younger person, you may not have a job, you may not get a lot of money for allowance or any for that matter, having money, losing money can be part of a problem. If youth who are gambling really want to gamble, they're going to get money somehow. Either they're going to start, quote unquote, borrowing from friends, really borrowing money they can't pay back because they're going to lose it to gambling. They may start stealing from friends, stealing from family members, or as it gets worse, potentially stealing from stores to sell that to someone else to have money to gamble. Now, if they're stealing and they're stealing from family and they're having financial problems, their relationships are going to start to suffer. They're going to start having problems with friends. There's going to be distrust at home. So they're going to start feeling more anxiety. So even if they don't have anxiety, now with gambling problems, they will start having anxiety. And with this anxiety, again, we'll start to experience more problems with family members because when people are anxious, they tend to make choices that are quicker rather than thinking them through to make healthy choices. And again, build relationships rather than make choices that can hurt relationships. And if they're struggling with their relationships, they have anxiety, they're engaging in crime, delinquency, not going to classes, their schoolwork is going to collapse, right? Because if I'm not there and I'm not focused and I'm not doing my work, I'm not going to get good grades. And if I'm not doing well at school, my relationships are falling apart, I have anxiety, I have money problems, and I'm stealing, I'm going to start feeling depressed because everything around me that's important is starting to fall apart. And with that, many people, adults and youth, may choose substance use and abuse. Again, novelty, very easy, it's quick, and it is a negative way to start trying to feel better to reduce anxiety and depression because it's going to start really affecting your overall health. And number one, anxiety and depression release different hormones in the body that are not necessarily good. And then putting substance abuse on top of that only makes matters worse. And if we think about it, if someone's using substances, they're gambling, feeling depressed, feeling anxious, they're probably not doing other things to try to stay healthy, like eating healthy and going out and exercise or activities. And with all that put together, now there's the potential for addictions. So again, now, why is gambling or youth gambling risky? Take a minute, press pause, talk with your group, and start identifying what are the things that really stick out to you that are reasons why youth gambling is risky. All right, welcome back. Hopefully that was a fun discussion. Hopefully you guys came up with some really interesting ideas as to what stuck out to each person, a consequence that you hadn't thought of. What youth need to know, and really adults as well, there are some truths about gambling. Number one, gambling comes with no guarantees. That's where the chance part comes in. If there's a chance things can go well or go poorly, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. So even a simple type of gambling, maybe someone's gambling on flipping a coin. The coin lands on heads, the coin lands on heads, the coin lands on heads. Is tails next? Not necessarily. The coin is not remembering how many times it landed on heads. Every time a coin is flipped, there is a 50-50 chance it will land on heads or tails. There's no guarantee that tails is coming next. Good luck charms don't play a part in winning or losing. That means a lucky hat, a lucky keychain, your socks. They're not lucky. There's nothing about these things that can affect whether somebody wins or loses in gambling. And most people who gamble lose. Think about it. Casinos are huge. They are beautiful. Why? Because they're making money. They're not giving money away. They're making substantially more money than other people could possibly win because they're a business. So it's important for people to realize that when they're gambling, they're more likely to lose. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. Gambling can become an addiction. Well, that makes sense because we talked earlier about how when someone chooses to gamble, their brain lights up the same way as someone who's using substances. So it is just as dangerous to the brain. Well, you might think to yourself, there's no chemicals. I'm not pulling anything in. You don't need to. The behavior, which again ties into that video about your choices affect your brain, just the choice of gambling and taking that risk and having your brain have those reactions can become an addiction. Again, your choices make the difference. Lastly, youth gambling is not a safe risk or activity. So, now we're going to talk a little bit about alternatives. So, here's a really important one to press pause and really think this through with friends. What are some healthy forms of risk taking? A lot of times when people talk about risk and risk taking, they think negatively, they think bad. But there are a lot of really healthy forms of risk taking. And the one clue I'll give you before you press pause is things that raise your adrenaline, that give you that rush. So take a minute, think amongst yourself or with your group, what are healthy forms of risk taking that you currently enjoy? All right, welcome back. There are a lot of different forms. Here are just some off the top of my head. Again, mountain bike riding, parasailing, jet skis, speaking in public, spelling bees, talent shows, all these things, roller coasters, anything that gets your adrenaline running that doesn't have a negative effect on your health is a healthy form of risk taking. There are so many things that you can choose from that help you feel excited. You can do with your friends and feel social. You can do things that feel entertaining. There are many forms of risk taking that can fill the gaps that some youth use to gamble. Lastly, we're going to talk about peer support and how you can make a difference. Because again, we talked earlier about how your peer support group is super, super important. So there are things that you can do. Number one, just listen. Just listen. It is so important to take that time to ask friends, to have discussions. Even if you're talking to someone that has really upset you recently, take that time to hear them out, hear what they have to say, because they may share things with you that really help open your eyes to say, all right, they've really hurt me. Things have gone wrong lately, but they're also kind of a mess and they seem like they need me. And that's where you can make a substantial impact and offer that support that they might need. So if you're listening, what are some things that you can listen for? Bragging about winning, interest in gambling conversations, unusual interest in newspapers and sports scores and things like that, things that they weren't previously interested in. There's all of a sudden randomly they're liking these things. Absences. Is your friend still going to school? Are they cutting classes? This makes a huge difference. They're making these life choices that could be different. And then things that they didn't have before, all of a sudden they have things of value. Things are just popping up. What you can look for is a change of personality. Are they no longer as kind as they once were? Are they exaggerating money and showing off? Are they borrowing money? Are they stealing money? Are they using money that they're supposed to use for, let's say, school lunch or for books? Are they using that money for gambling? Like, is it disappearing? They can't afford this stuff anymore. Are they withdrawing? They're not hanging out with you as much. They're not doing the things that you used to enjoy doing together. Again, may not be a problem due to gambling, but it's one part of this puzzle that you will put together as you're asking and looking for the signs and listening for them. These are just pieces of a potential puzzle that can show that this person is struggling with problems due to gambling. And then lastly, just forgetting about stuff. They're not thinking about everything because they're so focused on gambling, focused on how do I win money back, focused on I got to pay my buddy back. They're not going to be focused on other things because they're so overclouded with this discomfort of My life is falling apart. My relationships are falling apart. I need to fix it and I don't know how. There are people to reach out to. There are people that you know. These are just examples. Parents. You may have a great relationship with your parent. That's great. Maybe you have a shaky relationship and you know you need to help a friend of yours or yourself. Reach out to a teacher. Maybe there's a school counselor. Really, any adult that you trust that can help guide you, reach out to them. Reach out. These people are here because they support you and they want the best for you. And whether it's you struggling with gambling problems or a friend of yours that you care about is struggling with problems due to gambling, that has an effect on you. And somebody that you trust will help you out, they will guide you. So it's really important to reach out for help. There are things that you can do within your school. Maybe you're more involved in clubs and activities. Well, number one, school policies. Think about it. There are policies that say you are not allowed to use alcohol, drugs, or tobacco products within the school property. That makes sense, right? Well, make sure that it also says gambling. Very simple policy. Youth or students are not allowed to use alcohol, drugs, tobacco products, or to gamble on school property, right? Just fit it right in there. It's really important to have that because again, this creates some guides to make sure that everyone knows what the rules are to help make the best decisions for themselves. Additionally, fundraising activities. There are so many activities that don't have to include gambling. Raffles include gambling, so we can put those aside. We can talk about things like a car wash, talk about things like a garage sale where you find people that will donate things so that you can sell them in a garage sale and make some money. There are a ton of different ways to raise money. And if you're looking for other activities, there is a guide and there are many, many options for raising money. So if you're part of a group or if you're working with the PTA or working with other parent groups that are trying to raise money, take charge, step up, be that leader to say, hey, I know there's a resource to help raise money that doesn't include these activities that are unhealthy for youth. So this is a great thing where again, now you can take charge as a leader and you can be the peer that others look up to. Asking for help is never a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of confidence. It shows that you have thought to yourself, I don't know the answer. Someone else knows the answer and I'm going to find it. If you or someone you care about is experiencing problems because of gambling, reach out. And again, you can talk to a parent, a teacher, a scout troop leader, a coach. You can also reach out to this website at myproblemgamblinghelp.org, which is a website for the problem gambling resource centers across New York State. And by making a phone call, you will be connected to information and resources, and they will help give you direction. You don't have to tell them your name, where you're from, your phone number, nothing. They are just there to help support you. And there's a lot of information available. If you go to the You Decide website, the link is actually on the very bottom, youdecidemy.org. These other websites, New York Council on Problem Gambling, Talk to Kids, Mind Ride, they all have resources to help prevent and educate about youth gambling. But You Decide, that's the hub. That's where you're going to find everything, and it's broken down by age group to parents. We want to make sure this information is available. It is free. Print off anything you want, share everything we have. We want to help you raise awareness to help your community, your peers, and your best friends to help make the best decisions about themselves and hopefully deciding not to gamble. There are a lot of other resources that would be very helpful for parents or adults or whoever it is that you may have reached out to that can support you. We have resources to help support them. And lastly, thank you very much for being a part of this training, for learning the information that you did, and being able to be a leader now. Additionally, please scan that QR code or utilize the link just below to take our post-test and evaluation to let us know what you've learned and what you thought about this training. So, again, thank you very much and have a wonderful day.